What's the hardest thing about writing? Well, it's getting started. Maybe you're having a hard time coming up with a story idea, or you're stuck on where to take your story next. If you want a way into a story or a way through, I have 9 story starters to help you. This free PDF is full of story seeds and prompts to get you going. To download your 9 story starters, go to nancypanuccio.com/start. That's Nancy with an I, Panuccio with 2 C's, nancypanuccio.com/start. We don't need to see your character get the phone call, put on the dress, feed the cat, get in the car, drive down the boulevard, etc., unless it's essential to the story, unless it's revealing character. So either use it to reveal something essential about character or the character dynamics, or cut it. Writer Unleashed is for you, a writer who has a story you want to bring onto the page and into the hearts and minds of readers. I'm Nancy Panuccio, writer, editor, and writing coach. And each week, we'll explore techniques, mindsets, and inspiration for writing stories readers can't put down. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let's begin. Writers often get hung up on the revision process. It's overwhelming and daunting. But when you work on the sentence level, you can get a lot of the editing out of the way, and you can see the shape of your story. You can go deeper into the emotional, thematic structure of your story. Often what gets in the way of a good story boils down to 2 things: excess and vagueness. There are a lot of things you can cut right off the bat, and then from there, you can make each sentence more precise and vivid. Stories are built sentence by sentence, and you want to carve your sentences into something interesting and exciting to read. Better writing leads to better thoughts, better ideas, and a better story. But when should you edit? Often, we're advised not to edit until we finish the first draft or the exploratory draft. I agree that you don't need to make structural changes, that's revision, but you can make changes on the sentence level. You can make changes to sentence structure, syntax, phrasing, word choice to make sure what you're trying to say is clear and concise. I don't recommend you edit as you go. You don't want to interrupt the flow, but a good strategy is to go over the last day's work and start sculpting your sentences. It's a way to re-enter your story rather than pick up where you left off. And the reason I suggest this isn't for you to do a whole edit. Just 1 paragraph, or maybe the last scene you wrote. But take 1 paragraph at a time, 1 sentence at a time. And the reason this is effective is it encourages you to slow down. It encourages you to pay attention to and probe what it is you're trying to express. So in this episode, we're going to start with cutting the excess. All the unnecessary words, unnecessary phrases, actions, etc., that are interfering with the clarity of your story. Excess that is interfering with your reader's engagement with the story. So, in this episode, I'm going to give you 5 quick editing tips to give your sentences elegance, energy, and power. This is all about clarity and making sentences more muscular and visual. To paraphrase something Franz Kafka once said, every word must be a blow. So you're going to start with one paragraph, just one. Isolate it, copy and paste it into a Google Doc or a Word doc, and look for what you can cut. Most of editing is cutting. It's cutting excess. It's cutting filler words, replacing the general with the specific. So here are things you can cut. Number 1, perceptual words. I saw, he noticed, she thought, I heard, felt, tasted, smelled, I realized, I remembered. Now, in small doses, perceptual words make sense, but most of these are unnecessary bloat you can cut. We'll assume your character is seeing what's being described, hearing what or who is nearby. We'll assume she smells the bacon grease in the frying pan. So instead of, when I walked downstairs, I smelled the pungent scent of bacon grease from the morning's breakfast, just write, bacon grease hung in the air and stunk up my hair. Instead of, she could hear her husband's footsteps upstairs, the floorboards creaked as he paced back and forth. Rather than write, I saw the pregnant girl was clutching her stomach and crying out, write, the pregnant girl clutched her stomach and cried out. Rather than, I heard our bus groan on the highway, our bus groaned along the right lane with the tractor trailers. You can also cut things like I remembered or he recalled. Just bring us there. Instead of Dana instantly remembered being a 4-year-old girl in their old apartment on Wetherell Street, write, when Dana was 4, she lived on the 3rd floor in a railroad apartment on Wetherell Street. Instead of she found herself daydreaming about Dexter, go straight to the fantasy. She wanted to be in Rome with Dexter Mayhew in bed. So, number 1, perceptual words and phrases. Okay, on to number 2, mundane dialogue. This is also what my friend Roger Skipper used to call pass the meat and potatoes dialogue. Often I'll get something like this. Stacy walked to Janet's house down the block and knocked on her door. Stacy, how are you? Come on in, Janet said. Just bring us to the conversation. It's okay to start in the middle of it. Just situate us in place and time and bring us into it. Cut the mundane throat clearing. Hi, how are you? Yes, we normally do start conversations like that, but it has no place in your story. Here's an example from White Angel by Michael Cunningham. I go into the kitchen and find our mother washing fruit. She asks what's going on. I tell her nothing at all. So notice we're not getting the whole conversation here. We're not getting the throat clearing. We're getting a summary. And then we get into the heart of the conversation. She sighs over an apple's imperfection. Our mother works the apple with a scrub brush. She believes they come coated with poison. Where's Carlton? She asks. Don't know, I tell her. Bobby? What exactly is going on? Nothing, I say. My heart works itself up to a hummingbird's rate, more buzz than beat. I think something is. Will you answer a question? Okay. Is your brother taking drugs? We don't get any mundane dialogue when he comes into the room. We go straight to the heart of the conversation. Okay, on to number 3, mundane details. When showing how time passes, there's no need to have your characters get dressed, get into the car, drive along the highway, get out, knock on the door, whatever. Just write 3 hours later and bring us into the scene, or later that night, Or when I got there, I go into the kitchen and find our mother washing fruit. You want to avoid mundane activities like eating and dressing, feeding the cat, driving to work, etc. The only reason to include these is that they will reveal something about the character. So minimize these, but make them revelatory. Otherwise, cut them completely. Make sure they reveal details about your character we didn't know previously. Nothing is random. So instead of writing something like, I quickly slipped into my dress and headed to the party, which tells us nothing, just bring us to the party. Plunge us into a situation that's relevant to your character and related to their core desire. At the party, Dale was already chatting up the new girl from St. Mary's. Instead of giving us the car ride to where your character is going, just bring us to the next location. Or use the car ride to reveal something significant about your character. Don't just write, they got in the car and drove to the park. That's an empty sentence. So use it or lose it. Here's an example from Bobby Ann Mason's short story, Shiloh. This comes towards the end of the story. On Sunday, Norma Jean packs a picnic and they go to Shiloh. Norma Jean drives and Leroy, sitting beside her, feels like some boring hitchhiker she has picked up. He tries some conversation, but she answers him in monosyllables. Okay, it's just a few sentences, but it tells us a lot about the state of this relationship. The other thing you want to avoid is any insignificant actions or gestures just for the sake of giving your character something to do, like he took a sip of his coffee or she ate a spoonful of the delicious meal. That gives a pedigree of reality, but it has no place in your story. You can skip all of that or use it. Every action or gesture needs to reveal something essential. For example, if your characters are having a picnic, use the props. So back to Shiloh. They're at Shiloh, they're at the park. They go to the museum, they buy a souvenir for Norma Jean's mother, and then they find a picnic spot near the cemetery. Now, the author does not go into detail about everything they do at Shiloh. We don't get everything about the park museum. It's summarized to show the passage of time. So time is compressed, but the action, the scene, the crisis scene, plays out while they're picnicking. Now, the fact that they pick a spot near the cemetery is not random. This is key because they lost a child at 4 months due to infant death syndrome, which was mentioned earlier in the story. And the picnic is significant because there's a change that happens during the picnic. It's a significant event. Norma Jean has brought a picnic cooler with pimento sandwiches, soft drinks, and yodels. Leroy eats a sandwich and then smokes a joint, hiding it behind the picnic cooler. Norma Jean has quit smoking altogether. She is picking cake crumbs from the cellophane wrapper like a fussy bird. Okay, so again, the author is using this to draw contrast between these two characters and to show the divide between them. So it's all revelatory. So they have some more conversation about the history of Shiloh. Again, the author uses this intentionally. They both know that he doesn't know any history. He is just talking about some of the historical plaques they have read. He feels awkward, like a boy on a date with an older girl. They are still just making conversation. They sit in silence and stare at the cemetery for the Union dead and beyond at a tall cluster of trees. Campers are parked nearby, bumper to bumper, and small children in bright clothing are cavorting and squealing. So we get children again. Very intentional. It's not just a random detail. Norma Jean wads up the cake wrapper and squeezes it tightly in her hand. Without looking at Leroy, she says, "I want to leave you." Leroy takes a bottle of Coke out of the cooler and flips off the cap. He holds the bottle poised near his mouth, but cannot remember to take a drink. Finally, he says, "No, you don't." "Yes, I do. I won't let you." Okay, so again, the author is using props to convey something about the dynamics of the character. And notice the dialogue. The author cuts to the chase and doesn't bog it down with the mundane things that lead up to that conversation. It's all done in summary. So we don't get the things they might in real life say before Norma Jean tells him she wants to leave him. We don't need to see your character get the phone call, put on the dress, feed the cat, get in the car, drive down the boulevard, etc., unless it's essential to the story, unless it's revealing character. So either use it to reveal something essential about character or the character dynamics, or cut it. It should lead back to the main story problem. In this story, Leroy knows that his wife is disenchanted with their marriage, and he's trying to win her affection again. That is the main story problem. Okay, number 4, static verbs. Static verbs are those weak to-be verbs. Was, were, is, am, are, would've, had been. Novice writers tend to lean on those, especially is and was. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing this in a first draft. We all do it. And some writers do a whole edit just on verbs. We want to replace static verbs with dynamic verbs. So what you can do with your paragraph or your scene is circle all those weak to-be verbs and then rewrite those sentences to be more active. Instead of something like, "It was pouring rain," rewrite the sentence to be something more active. "Sheets of rain pelted the asphalt and gurgled in the ruts." That transforms a very boring sentence into something active. And it gives us an image. So once you've circled your weak to-be verbs, your static verbs, and you've rewritten the sentence, you can now make those verbs more precise. You can move from the generic to the more descriptive. So for example, instead of ran, sprinted. Instead of walk, saunter or sashay. Instead of jump, leap. Instead of I heard the bus hiss or our bus was hissing, write our bus hissed. Then make it even more tactile. Replace hissed with groaned. Our bus groaned along the right lane with the tractor trailers. That's more vivid and tactile. Okay, last one, number 5, adverbs. Now, often adverbs prop up weak verbs or adjectives, and they describe poorly. Sometimes we'll get something like, "She said angrily." Just give us the dialogue and demonstrate the anger in the exchange, in the dynamic between the characters. For example, if we go back to the example from Shiloh, we don't need to be told that she said, "I'm leaving you," and said it coldly. We get the coldness from the exchange. Without looking at Leroy, she says, "I want to leave you." The coldness is embedded in the action. You also want to watch out for adverbs that merely repeat the meaning of the verb. Rudely insulted or gently caressed, stumbled awkwardly. You also don't need words like really, very, too, extremely. She was very tired. The meeting was pretty boring. So cut your adverbs and see how the sentence holds up. Okay, so let's recap. To make your writing stronger, cut the excess. Number 1, perceptual words. I saw, he noticed, she thought, I heard, felt, tasted, smelled, I realized, I remembered. We'll assume that your character is perceiving these things. Number 2, mundane dialogue. We don't need the throat clearing. We don't need the how are you, come on in kind of thing. Just bring us to the heart of the conversation. Number 3, mundane details. We don't need your characters to drive to the next location. We don't need to see them get dressed or knock on the door, unless you use it to reveal something significant. Number 4, static verbs. These are your weak to be verbs. The most common is and was. Rewrite the sentence to eliminate those. Replace them with dynamic verbs and then get more specific. And number 5, adverbs. These weaken your prose and they describe poorly. The more economical you can be, the better it will read. So you can take one paragraph at a time and go through each sentence. Look for where you can say more with less. This will help you see your story with more clarity. You can learn more about your story by paying attention to it right on the sentence level. The more granular you can get, sentence by sentence, the easier it is to get your arms around your material, the easier it is to crystallize what you're trying to say and create a better reader experience. So there you have it. Thanks for hanging out with me today. And if you know any writers who need some support in their writing, please share this episode or the Writer Unleashed podcast in general. And if you love what you're listening to, subscribe on your favorite listening platform and please leave me a review. Reading how this podcast impacts your writing truly lights me up and helps me create topics for the show. Till next time, keep writing, and I'll talk to you soon.